A special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show and the Reignstorm Radio Show with Michael Aguas. Michael, we're going to continue in part two to talk about deferred compensation. We're going to talk about the funding side of things. It's really intriguing because it's very hard to find a great employee, a high achiever, somebody who you might see take over the business or be one of your major key players when you step back a bit. That's what you're seeing with a lot of clients, right? That you work
That's
with on that.
exactly what we're planning for. When that golden employee comes and you see that their heart is in it and they are contributing in real ways and they're showing that, that they're going to stick around for a little while, this is a program that you really need to look at because they could truly be instrumental in the growth of your company.
No doubt. So we're going to dive into this, into the funding side of things on today's podcast. What are the biggest mistakes owners make when funding these plans?
To me, the biggest mistake is using corporate cash flow to fund this plan. And let me be more specific. They're not going to do any pre-funding, which is the biggest mistake right there. And then, as the years go on, they're going to be relying on cash flow in the future that they don't know what this thing looks like. And meanwhile, they have a liability because an employee is waiting for this income. So what happens? They it's the lack of planning is what it is, and it could be disastrous, right? So corporate cash flow is probably the biggest mistake that people can make. The other way, right, which involves significant risk too, is using stocks and bonds, mutual funds to fund these things. What is it? What it provides you with potential growth, right? So as long as you understand that there are risks involved, if you have a longer time horizon, that might make more sense. But there is risk involved. There is market volatility that you'll be subject to. There is potential growth. So you want to make sure that your risk and your timeline, your time horizon are perfectly aligned.
Yeah, because if you don't plan right, then there's a big problem. And if you're putting
Yes,
in a risk, and we always talk about sequence and returns risk if you're involving certain things like
sure.
that, this could be just horrible for somebody
Yes.
who then thought that the market was going to do well and it crashed, especially in certain funds.
And
Well,
it's
you can
hard to
fund this,
recover.
it's hard to recover. And it's something where a lot of employees are like, I'm not going to, that are real top players. Well, and I just build my own business, then
Yes.
risk your funding of this in the right way. So this is where they could say, okay, yeah, I'm big player in this, but I can leave, start my own firm and not have to worry about this. Why am I going to put all my eggs into your basket if there's going to be volatility involved?
There you go. There
Right.
you go.
Okay. So
So
why?
another,
Yeah, go ahead,
a
sir.
third way of funding this type of a program is called a rabbi trust. It is a type of deferred compensation program where employers can put money into a trust for the benefit of the employees. Not a bad idea. It's been used, it's being used, and yeah, it's always the right circumstances, right? That's the most important thing. And the one thing that you might want to also note on that is that it is subject to, creditor risk. So if creditors come after you, they can also come after this trust. So some people, that's a legitimate risk, and you want to take a good look at that before you decide which way you want to go forward.
No
But
doubt.
ask me
Yeah.
what I believe is the best way to fund these programs.
And what is the best way?
Cash value life insurance. So, and that really is my preferred strategy for this. And it's really both strategic and efficient use of money. Why? Because the growth is tax deferred. Think about that. It's not getting taxed as it's growing, just like mutual funds or other investments may be. This is not getting taxed. So, tax deferred growth, tax advantage access. How? In the form of a loan. It becomes a non taxable event if you borrow against your policy There's also a death benefit. Obviously, it's a life insurance policy. And the performance, there's if you're using an index universal life, there's usually a protection on your principal. The question from year to year is what interest will I receive this year versus, can I get hurt in the stock market? There are other vehicles like a variable universal life out there, but index universal life we feel is probably the most efficient use, or excuse me, the most efficient strategy, right? And the key obviously is what? You have to have somebody who is insurable.
Yeah.
You have to have somebody who's insurable. Now, these are the funding mechanisms, but the most important thing is you also should have an attorney written agreement between the company and the employee. So they are clear on what they need to accomplish in order to receive this golden handcuff, this compensation in the future.
So how would people look at this? Let's give you an example, Michael, in the saying you're funding this through cash value life insurance, and somebody might not know this, meaning the employee. You've already educated the employer very well about what this happens, but when you're presenting that as a different type of compensation plan, how do you present something like that to them?
It's usually a pleasant meeting. If you're my employee, Neil, you've been a key employee of mine for a while, and I really would like for you to continue growing with us. We appreciate you, and we want to put together a program that will help you with more incentives to continue what you've been doing all along, contributing to the company. We will have written down a specific agreement where if you hit certain targets in tenure and in performance, you will be receiving income in the future over and above your current salary. So we've done that in again, in one situation where we have somebody who's, I think, 30 years old, 30, 31, and the employer wanted to provide them 50,000 a year in income at age 60. This is their choice, right? That employer, we put together a plan for them, and I don't even think they have to put in like $8,000 a year towards that program for the next 7, 8 years. So very, very cost effective, and that employee was very, very appreciative. Um, so these things can be tailored. These things can be very much customized. And again, it's worth repeating that you can be very selective with the employees you work with in this
Yeah.
program.
So in the funding side of things, that's the funding not of that employee. That funding is
Correct.
done, is it done with the employee?
It is only funded by the employer.
The employer. Okay. So the employee does not know it's cash value life insurance that's being done.
Correct. They're all they know is there's a number that
Ah,
they're going to receive. Well, I
okay.
mean, at the end of the day, they will because they have to be insured, right? But the key is their mind is not so much on the funding vehicle, more so than, wow, they're putting together a program for me that will allow me some pretty significant paydays, if I stick around for a while.
So that payday will be through cash value life insurance then.
Yeah, in the way we design it, that's our preference.
Okay. I got it. But they can cash it out. They don't have to wait till they can cash it out when they want to cash it out at the
Well,
end. Mhm.
again, it's all subject to an agreement between the employer and the employee. But yeah, at some point they could cash it out, period.
Got it. Okay. So very interesting that process. But it's what you're doing. People need to go and find out. So if someone is listening and thinks this might apply to them, what should they do next?
You need to look at your company and the direction it's headed. You have to take a good look at your employees and see who you want to have this conversation with. That's very important and very obvious. And then lastly, you want to work with the right advisors who can give you all the options, right? So maybe the life insurance is not the solution for you. It could be the Rabbi Trust, it could be something else, but you want to work with a competent advisor who knows what options exist and set up a program that not only meets your needs, but is also very tax efficient.
I got it. because it's got to be tax efficient at the end of the day. And that's why you have another strategy for them after
That's
that.
right.
So
That's
once
right.
you put all that together for your employees, you keep growing as a company because you need high achieving employees to grow your revenue. And
Yes.
after that point, then there's another plan.
Yes.
All right. So go to rainstormmediagroup.com, fill out the contact form, and contact Michael today, or feel free. And we're going to be offering very soon. I got to tell Michael this, the opportunity to set up a call also, and a number that only people listening to this program can dial. And we'll be talking about that more later on in a future podcast. Appreciate it, Michael. That was the special simulcast of the Neil Hayes Show and the Rainstorm Radio Show, guys. Take care.